I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Gene Dorio, one of Santa Clarita's healthcare activists and just all-around good guy. Come on, let's give him a big round of applause. Gene, I'll put your presentation on, and you can advance it just by pushing right.
If you ever want to go back. Great. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thanks, Al, for having me here, and thanks to the CCAC for having me as well. I'm Gene Dorio, and I'm an internist here in Santa Clarita. I graduated 30 years ago, and I did do trauma. And one of the reasons why I don't do trauma now is it's pretty tough, psychologically, especially. I think the most marked thing that I had happen to me was just seeing kids. I couldn't handle that. So, and I didn't go into pediatrics, that was another reason, but I did go in internal medicine. And so I've been here for 23 years here at Henry Mayo Hospital. I do solely now only geriatrics. I do house calls and the hospital. And I have to say, no one's paying me to be here tonight. There are no financial incentives nor financial gain for being here. I am not representing the medical staff. This is my personal opinion based on fact. And I am a medical reporter and whistleblower, and that's what my lawyer told me to tell you. This is from the KHTS website, and pretty much encompasses who I am. I do run, and I've run in 9 marathons, and I'm looking for my last marathon, not my last, but my next 10th marathon to run in. So I am working on that now, and you can see this sign here, right here. It says, "Kids need both parents." And I've been wearing this button here for 20 years, and most people don't even look at it or realize it, but this is pretty much what I stand for. I ran a group here for 15 years called Mr. Mom and Mrs. Dad. It was a free group for those who were going through divorce. And of course, my interest in that was that kids need both parents, and the way they don't get both parents is because of the divorce system. So I was involved in that, and I still, to a certain degree, am involved in it. I do the senior hour on KHTS radio, 12:20 a.m. on your dial. We're on Wednesdays, 11 to 12, that's my pitch. I also did as well Channel 20. I did House Call for Seniors. We did shows like You Can Still Go Far If You Don't Have a Car, and the award-winning So Your Eyes Are Out of Whack Might Be a Cataract. And I did that with Dr. Arnold Barton. I wrote a column for The Signal. It was called Profiles in Medicine. But my main thing has always been to run. And in this particular race, this is, I think, it was 2005, I think. And I finished dead last. There were about 385 runners. And I actually would have finished 381, but 4 girls were lost, and I had to call them back onto the track, and in doing that, I let them finish in front of me, but still I was last. But because of that, well, not because of that, I was running in the race, running up Old Orchard, and had my sign, this sign in my hand, and I realized that there was a police car behind me with its lights on, which, of course, I knew meant that I was last. Well, to be honest with you, that didn't bother me so much, but when I saw this in the LA Times, and you might not be able to read that, but it's some marathon runners, and that's the last person right there. And he's saying to his son, "Pay attention, son, see that straggler? We follow him to about mile 21 and wait for him to collapse. Then we pounce. That's our place in the circle of life, son." And yeah, I didn't want to be prey like that, so that was the last time I finished last. So this is a editorial in the Signal newspaper. It's from April 24th, 2011, and President and CEO Roger Seaver described the leadership team at Henry Mayo as a three-legged stool. And for some gastroenterologists, this might conjure up a different picture. But you know, there are three entities that talk about. One is the medical staff, administration, and the board members. And I do first want to talk about the medical staff and the doctors. Everybody has a different idea about their doctors and their relationship with their doctors. And Jim Unger, who does this cartoon, has this patient who's talking to her doctor. I feel a lot better since I ran out of those pills you gave me. And then this next one, same by Unger, patient to pharmacist, about the doctor. One of these is a prescription and one is a receipt from a Chinese restaurant. Can't tell, the chicken scratch, almost like mine. But this is the medical staff. It's somewhat difficult to see probably in the back, but it's a self-governing body. In the state of California, we are not reliant on anybody else. We're not supposed to take money. We're not supposed to be bent or in any way. We're supposed to do our job. That's what the state law says here. There are 387 physicians, and it says up there most not employed by the hospital. Really, none of them are employed by the hospital. There is one who is, and he's not on the medical staff. Most of them, though, have, not most of them, but there are some also that have contracts. They have pathology contracts. They have emergency room contracts, x-ray contracts, things like that. But they're not paid directly. They just have a contract. The medical staff is made up of a medical executive committee, and there are 6 elected doctors, and there are 5 appointed. And those 5 that are appointed by the chief of staff. Frank Youssef is our chief of staff right now. Gregory Jenkins, who I talked with today, he's in Vermont visiting his daughter. He is our deputy chief of staff. Phil Chatham is the secretary, and I am the treasurer. Now, I was elected, I've been at Henry Mayo, like I said, for 23 years, but I was elected for the first time in January to be on the medical executive committee, and they think I'm good with money, but I don't really think I am I, Robin? But they elected me treasurer, and Joe Terrazino, a good friend of mine, also was elected. So the two of us are the new people, and this, as you may recognize, was on the West Branch Beacon, and it does have how long we've been there, and there's quite a good number of years for most of the physicians in terms of their experience. Now, the other legs of the stool are the administration, with Roger Seaver as the main person in the administration, and then you have your board of directors. There are 15 members, 5 doctors. They're governed by bylaws, like the medical staff is, and their appointment is from the governance board, which I probably won't get into too much detail right now, but they are the ones where, flowing from them, these board members are brought from. This is your board that, once again, it might be hard to see. This comes from the Henry Mayo website, and this is their board for 2011, and you can see the board chair is Craig Peters. His term just started. The previous chair was James Hickens, and also you have Don Kimball and Judy Fish, who are the elected. Now you have five doctors. One is Dr. Asimov. One is Richard Corlin. This is Mark Leiker, Roscoe Martyr, and this is our chief of staff, Frank Youssef. And there is, out of these 15 people, there's only one person who is elected right now, and there were 2, and that's the crux of some of what I'm talking about. And I do want you to remember Dr. Corlin right here, because his name's going to come up in a little while. Now, the board of directors, is there bias in their vote? And I don't know the answer to this, but I do know that when I typed this up, one of my colleagues looked at me and said, "You spelled bias wrong." And I looked at that and I said, "I did?" He said, "It's supposed to be spelled B-U-Y-U-S." And I thought, that's a nice way of looking at it, but no, I think I think I'm right. It is there a bias here? And that's the ultimate question that I think that we're here to talk about and answer. Now, here are the facts about the board of directors. Craig Peters is the executive vice president of industrial properties for C.B. Richards. He is leasing office space for medical office building number 1 through G&L Realty. That building is not built yet, but that's his apparent role. The board treasurer is James Hickens. He's president and chief executive officer of Bank of Santa Clarita. Henry Mayo has money in his bank. Dr. Asimov, who I've known for many years, he's an excellent doctor. The IRS Form 990 for 2008 says that he has a contract, and it's a fairly large contract for dialysis center at the hospital. Dale Donahoe owns Intertex companies. When you go around the hospital right now, you will see you'll see some trailers there that say Intertex on them. Elizabeth Hopp, as most of you know, I've known her for many years as well. She's with the Bank of Santa Clarita, and they have, once again, with James Hickens, money in the bank. Mark Leiker has fairly lucrative contracts as a surgical specialist. He is an excellent neurosurgeon, and some people say I need to have my brain operated on. I will let Mark do that. Roscoe Martyr is OBGYN for Facey Group, and they have a contract with the hospital. And, of course, Roger Seaver has a contract as well with the hospital. So is there conflict? Is there conflict of interest? Does it affect their decision-making? I don't know the answer to that, but, I asked these people as well. Antonio Villaraigosa, does money affect your decision-making? Lee Baca, Sheriff Lee Baca, does money affect your decision-making? I don't know, but I do think that one thing that is reflective of a person's decision-making is what they do. And I look at the votes for what the board of directors has voted on. I look at that and say, well, could there be some true bias here? So this is a list that I've compiled. Most of this you've already seen. All of it you've already seen if you do read the West Ranch Beacon. Going back to some of the things that reflect on their voting, the first thing is removal of the deputy chief of staff. That's Dr. Jenkins. He was on the board of directors. He still can sit on the board of directors, but he doesn't have a vote anymore. And all this reflection of voting is within the past year. The board also decreased the medical staff fees, and it was $2,200 when you applied to the staff. They've made it $500. That $1,700 was mainly to defeat and decrease the amount of money that our Treasury has so that we don't have money to pay any lawyers. The one below that is rebates the past 10 years. That $1,700 difference, they want to take any money that comes in and pay that back and rebate it to the doctors for the past 10 years, once again to decrease the amount of money in our Treasury so we can't hire any lawyers. They hired a judge to oversee our medical staff elections. They've just within the last 6 months, they actually lengthened the board term limits, so each board member is sitting on the board of directors of Henry Mayo Hospital longer. They are using so-called secret files to block physician reappointment. They're hiring outside consultants, and this was reported to be for $350,000 just to tell us that the medical staff, the doctors, are responsible for communication problems. They did create an administrative position known as Chief Medical Officer. She was receiving $22,000 per month, I was told. But her position, it was made up by the board of directors, but it's not defined by hospital-wide policies nor procedures and not a part of the medical staff bylaws. So staying on that topic, the Chief Medical Officer, since this position was created, Dr. John Coco was suspended from the medical staff. They have a new code of conduct which has been developed. With the hospital, they have two, one for the medical staff, which we follow, but they have another one which the hospital is using against physicians, and going back to the list that I had for the medical staff and the officers, the secretary, Phil Chatham, was not elected because the previous secretary He resigned because of problems related to the hospital putting pressure on him, and then he also felt that patient care was being compromised at the hospital. There were 3 letters of corrective action sent by Roger Seaver to the Medical Executive Committee, to the Chief of Staff, to the Secretary and the Treasurer, and I'm Treasurer, so I got one of those letters. And bottom line is this letter has to be, an investigation has to take place by the Medical Executive Committee. The Medical Executive Committee will look into it, and then it goes to the Board of Directors to get rubber stamped to negate it. And of course, you all know what I think right now, as a reflection of voting, what my course is going to be at Henry Mayo. They're going to vote me. They're going to vote it so that I don't continue on the medical staff. And since the chief officer has not been defined by hospital governing documents, when that chief medical officer is sitting in committee meetings and reading medical charts, this may be a breach in your healthcare confidentiality. So the chief medical officer who was appointed was Susan Reynolds, MD, and interestingly enough, this is Susan Reynolds here, and she runs a company. She's the president and CEO of the Institute for Medical Leadership. And her contract ran out, and so they needed to get another chief medical officer. So here's the faculty of her organization, and voila, there's Dr. Richard Frankenstein, who is now the new chief medical officer. And going back to the board, Dr. Richard Corlin, is right here. So here we have the first CMO, second CMO, and the now a new board member. So they do keep it all in the family. Board of directors, are they making good decisions? And that's a tougher question to answer. I'm a doctor, didn't like trauma, couldn't handle it, could handle it, but just psychologically couldn't handle it. Did orthopedic surgery, came back out to California because I was running in Detroit one day on Memorial Day and started to snow on me. That was it. I transferred to University of California, Irvine, and did my internal medicine. But good decisions. I think it was a great decision on my part to come to California. How about the board of directors, though? They have a catheterization lab. Catheterization lab is for cardiac, to put dye in so you can see how the heart is doing. That's losing a lot of money. There's no denying that putting this in took up not only a lot of floor space, but it also is not making money for the hospital. And you know something? I am fine with that. If we have to sometimes have services at Henry Mayo Hospital that don't make money, but it is giving a good service to our hospital and our community, keep it. But this right now is not making money, and to me that became a problem because we have asked for, and we want to see a feasibility study, what they considered in looking at this cath lab, how much it would cost and things like that, but we still haven't seen that. And the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, that, as I've mentioned in the blog, there are 12 new beds at Antelope Valley. There are 12 new beds at Holy Cross, 24 new beds surrounding us. We are going to have 11 beds. About 3.5 years ago, a question was asked by one of our OBGYN doctors, how viable is a 12-bed NICU at our hospital? And at that time, Roger Seaver said it wouldn't be viable, would not be viable, because the feasibility study, he said, showed that the neonatal intensive care would only have 3 beds full. That doesn't make money. So he said at that time, we can't have one. Now, all of a sudden, we have one, but we have also additional competition in Antelope Valley, and we have additional competition down at Holy Cross. So here we have cath lab, neonatal intensive care unit, and if we have 2 programs that don't make money, that makes it a lot more difficult for our hospitals to survive. And you all know 10 years ago we went into bankruptcy, and we can't see that again. There is a new surgical suite at the hospital. It will be the 4th operating room, but we have word in just the past month or so that they want to make this surgical suite as backup for the catheterization lab so we can do more aggressive treatment of heart patients. And you know, I have no problems with it. I was at Baylor. We were doing CATs and bypass, you know, on everybody, and to me that works. But, you know, my question is, and it still is, and I'm waiting for the result, when are we going to get the feasibility study to show that this is not going to lose money? We have these 3 things. You know, I'm looking at bankruptcy. Once again, I'm not a financial person. I'm not supposed to be doing this, but the board is. And they're the ones who are supposed to be looking at this, not me. I'm just trying to do my job. You know, the transitional care unit, Robin and I tried to fight for that and keep that open. We were very successful for 19 months, but they did close it. I know the statistics behind it. I know, I'm fully aware that it was, of course, one of those projects that we had, which was great for the hospital because it did help our seniors who were in the hospital go from the acute care down to a lower level, and as a stepping stone would be able to go home. We lost that, and now some of our patients, most of our patients, have to either go to a nursing home or a boarding care instead. And then the new hospital tower, I saw they have it, the other day we had a meeting and I saw the built-up tower, and I just think it's wonderful. I just think it's great. I think it's a good idea. It adds 2 more operating rooms to the 3 and then 4 when we get this new one, so we'll have a total of 6. There are single rooms in it. It's new. You know, we all like new things, and this is new. But the only thing about it that I didn't like was it's not green and it's not a Leeds building, and I think I brought that up many times, and I think I'm hoping that they will look at that as a possibility. So what's the medical staff doing to fight back in this whole thing? Well, we have legal representation jeopardized by the application fees, but we're working. We had to raise our own fees to counteract that, but we're working on that, but that hasn't helped that much yet. The vote of no confidence against administration and the board of directors on January the 11th, 2011. We did have a vote of no confidence. The medical staff did. Everybody on the medical staff who was there, voted for the vote of no confidence. There was only one doctor who voted against it. The medical executive committee members, in trying to fight back, they went to Chicago. I was not a part of the MEC at that point, but they were complaining to the board that the administration was not communicating, and of course the board, being the combined together in that 3-stool to 2-stool chair, they weren't listening. So the medical staff felt they had to go to Chicago and discuss this with the Joint Commission, which can sanction you or it gives you the rubber stamp to be able to go on and practice in any community. And last one that I've been mostly doing is just writing my opinion in the West Ranch Beacon, and I'm very thankful to the West Ranch Beacon and Dave Bossard for allowing me to do that, because the City Council and the media here in Santa Clarita has not been helpful nor gracious to us, and they, like I said here, is not willing to bend an ear. So what problems do we have at Henry Mayo? Being at Henry Mayo 23 years, you know, I love the hospital. This is, I live in this community, and I want this hospital to succeed. I don't want it to go bankrupt again, but being on the inside, I see everything that's going on. And to be honest with you, there are some good things and there are some not good things. And I just can't be the judge of that. I don't have the background, and nor do I have the time, especially the financial time, to be able to do that. But I would expect people on the board of directors especially to be the ones who make Roger and the administration and everybody else accountable. I have no problems with that. That's how this country runs. And I think that by the board not stepping forward and not giving their opinions and just going the straight and narrow does create problems. Sentinel events, definitely a problem. Sentinel event is when something happens, which is not supposed to occur, affecting the patient physically or psychologically. We have had that at the hospital, and we haven't, as doctors, been told about it, and it was talked about in the West Ranch Beacon. Because of that, though, and because of our complaints, the hospital, and because of the potential Joint Commission sanctions, the hospital is listening to that, and we have now set up a better way of reporting these sentinel events and making sure that whatever it is will come out and not be swept under the table. You all heard me at the city council meetings talking about operating rooms and scheduling. The operating rooms are the local newspaper just keeps saying that we have 8 operating rooms. We do not. We have 3 right now, and when the 4th one comes on board, we'll have 4. When they eventually do, in 5 or 8 years, build the hospital tower, we'll have 6 of them, which still will still not meet the requirements. But they have trouble with not only the number, but with the scheduling. Because of they built the corridor from one building to another, it's added a tremendous amount of building and staff security. One of the nurses we all have our ID badges, and it has our name on it. Nurses have their names on it too. And you might know when you come to the hospital, you see the prison guards there, and we have prisoners. And the nurses have in the past had their name taken off and then Googled, and these prisoners find out their email addresses and find out where they live. I mean, this is a danger, and I've put that out there. One of the nurses had her first name and just covered up the first initial of her last name, and she got into trouble for that. And the hospital says it's not a hospital rule, but to be honest with you, for the safety of the people at our hospital, you know, we have to allow them to do that, and we have to find a way around that. But they have not done that even after my protests. Supplies on the floor has always been problematic, especially for the surgeons, and the surgeons always need some kind of supplies. I need my stethoscope, but they have told me time and time again that when they need certain things, dressing changes and things like that, they don't have it. When they hire hospital personnel, a lot of times they have trouble teaching the new people to come in, and they are definitely inadequate in terms of how they're teaching. They, once again, as I mentioned before, about sacrificing other services like the transitional care unit to maintain money-losing departments. I'm just afraid in the long run, if the neonatal intensive care unit, if the cath lab, if the operating room costs too much money, it's going to put us under, and we have to make those financial considerations. There's a lot of fear at the hospital to voice their opinion. There's a lot of intimidation. I have never seen anything like this at any hospital. I've probably been right now, probably at least 30 hospitals in my life, and I've never seen anything like this, the way staff and the medical staff and the regular staff is treated. There is a lot of intimidation. I've complained about this for years, no exit interviews when a staff member quits, and all of us know the Fortune 500, those companies do very well for one real good reason. It's because they do exit interviews. I have complained to no end to see some of the exit interviews, to talk to people about it, and to find out why they're not doing it, and it continues and persists. And then finally, there is zero interaction between the Medical Executive Committee and the board. They have said that they're going to have a meeting, and it was over a month ago, but they would have a meeting in 4 weeks. They could have had a meeting and they didn't invite me, but I would hope that when they do have a meeting that I will be allowed to be there and participate in that, because I think it's important that everybody's viewpoint is out. Patient care, that's what is our bread and butter at Henry Mayo Hospital. If we don't give good patient care, we're gone. That's the bottom line. We will not survive if patient care is not provided. And that is a problem, because a reflection of poor patient care is public opinion in general. It's very hard to go around this community, and I support the hospital. I support what it does. I want to make sure this hospital is the best hospital anywhere. But when you go around, I'm sometimes having to convince our seniors that it is a good hospital. In many ways, it is good. But I can see a lot of faults in this. And the surveys that are out there right now, the public, the state and the federal ones and the private ones, when you go online, it doesn't show that we're giving good patient care, and that's a big problem. The Joint Commission sanctions also shows poor patient care, not just the communication problems, but also poor patient care. The medical staff voted no confidence is indicative of it. And ultimately, and I'm not real good at this, but we had a talk the other day about the financing, because I asked when I saw the tower how much it's going to cost, and Bob Hudson was good enough to educate me on the bond ratings and how good they need to be. And right now, I think they're of the belief that that bond ratings, that communication problems with the doctors is not going to be a problem with bond ratings. And I talked to a friend of mine who builds hospitals, and he says it is a small consideration, and I don't want to see that because we're not communicating well and we're getting to that single stool chair that we fail in getting that tower built. This is my statement. I salute all physicians, nurses, and other ancillary caregivers for their common humanity and effort to bring patient care to this community. Unfortunately, because of the lack of leadership, the care they render is limited by an inability to have the best facility at their disposal. We had a State of the Hospital meeting on May the 10th, and they told us they were going to be changing the mission statement, the values, and the vision and the values. And this was the change that I noticed in particular, that they were changing this to this, and these values here were removed from here: trust, clinical competence, and compassionate care. Now, is this Freudian? I don't know, but it does bother me that those aren't there anymore. And my hope is when they see this Al on YouTube, some of the board members will reconsider making that change. And finally, hopefully you can see this in the back, but winning isn't everything. Understanding life is. Any questions?